Good morning. Welcome to Bayview. I'm Nikki Thomas. We have a very special guest with us in studio this morning. Her name is Lenora Williams from Williams LL and Associates, creating healthy and sustainable nonprofit organizations. How are you?
I'm great. Good
Great.
morning.
Thank you for being here with us. You know what? I imagine you are a very popular lady. Yes.
Some people would say that.
Yes, I'm absolutely certain of it because so many folks here, particularly in the Bay Area, passionate about so many issues in our community. And the question is probably sitting in a lot of our listeners' minds right this second. I want to start a nonprofit. How do I do that? How do I do it? You know, because so many times the passion is there and that's there first. And then you have to start to build. And it takes, there's some knowledge and some educating that you have to do before you even start climbing that whole passionate path that you want to take. So I'm so glad that you're here. So let me just tell you right now, we got some great information to share with you. So, get your tea or, your coffee and get settled and everything so that this lady can kind of break it all down for you. So how did you get into this field?
Well, I started in school thinking I wanted to be an educator.
Okay.
And actually did a dual degree in education and math and psychology and added another subject. And then taught at a nonprofit child care center.
Is that right?
In school.
Uh-huh.
And in doing that, didn't understand why they weren't so worried about the bottom line, but really more the mission and the level of programming.
Right.
And how well we were doing at the programming. And so that made me very curious. And from there, it kind of sparked that interest. But I went to other fields in between then and still kept working with nonprofits. But 30 years later, I'm sitting here saying, wow, I've done the full gamut.
Yeah, sounds like you have.
I've worked with nonprofits from startup, from what you discussed a minute ago, someone with a passion and a dream saying, I want to figure out how to do this, to nonprofits that have over $100 million and are trying to figure out how can I do tax-exempt bonds to buy and purchase another building to put additional programming in.
Okay, don't get ahead of us.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Because I do want to start at the beginning. I do want to start at the beginning for the folks who are just figuring out, because I think that's probably a key phrase right there, because you said figuring out, and that is the pivotal point. When you're saying, I want to do this, I don't have any clue about the tax bond thingies that you just mentioned. You know what I mean? I have no clue what that even is.
Yeah.
So, probably a good question to ask is, how do you know if you're ready to even take the step to start to build a nonprofit?
That is a good question. I think if you have a real desire,
That's a good word, desire. Okay.
You've done some level of research to see that your desire meets the need of a particular community.
Yes.
And the people you're trying to serve.
Right.
And then the next key question is, do you have the tenacity, the ability to stick with it?
Wow.
Way beyond the dream. Because times get hard.
Yeah.
And it is hard work.
Yeah, I know several people who have nonprofits, and it can be very overwhelming. It is a lot of work. Even when you have staff and people to help you, there's lots of organizing that you do. You have to, kind of keep up with so many different things. So you'd have to kind of sit and have a conversation with yourself and then kind of look at where you are in life. Because I would imagine, like, say, if you wanted to start a nonprofit, oh, I've got a family, I've got this. How is it going to fit into your life right now?
And I think it's very much like, if you can think of some of the corner stores that you see, where people have those corner stores.
Right.
I just interviewed a woman who has a nonprofit in Oakland, and she used this example. She said, I look at the mom and pop store next to me, and I see that they're there from maybe 4 a.m. to midnight.
Yeah.
And they do that 6 days a week.
Right.
And they may take off one day or they may not. Very much like starting up a nonprofit. And not just startup, but continuing.
For a while.
For a while.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of work we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Are you that committed?
Well, so next question. This is probably pretty important as well. You don't necessarily have to tackle all this by yourself, though. It probably is important to build a team, right?
Of course. And collaborations, looking at people that already have nonprofits, looking at people that have nonprofits that are doing similar work.
Right.
Sitting down and talking with some people, going and interviewing some people that have nonprofits that are new, maybe a year old.
Or even volunteering with one and say, you know what, let me help you out with yours so I can find out what to do.
Exactly. And if you spend some time like that, you'll see the level of work. And if you are, I say interview, because if you could get with an executive director or, we usually call them executive directors, or some call them presidents or CEOs. They also are called CEOs. But if you get with someone who's open, they will actually tell you how many hats they have to wear.
Okay.
And depending on the size of the nonprofit, they'll begin to tell you, these are some things I think you need to look out for.
Right.
These are some things I think you need to think about. And don't be so ready to do it all at first by yourself. Sometimes you can partner with other nonprofits and they can become an agent for you.
That's awesome.
We're used to fiscal agents, but they can also be a program agent, meaning that they can house your program for you until you can get it up and running.
That's amazing.
And then they can help you manage your money while you get funding coming in.
Right. See, that's why you're here today. That's why you're here today, to show us, okay, this there's more than one way to do it. Because I know that there's so many people here who are just that passionate that I'll work 12 hours a day. I am so ready to do this. And it's like, okay, let's just chill out for a minute and really think about the best way, the most efficient way to tackle the problem. So when we began, I did mention that, we see nonprofits. We see so many of them popping up. Why are they so important to our community?
Because they serve a group of people who would not necessarily receive the services they're providing if they didn't exist.
Ooh, serve is the pivotal word there. Serve. Okay.
When you think about homeless shelters, most of them are nonprofits.
Yeah.
When you think about food pantries, most of those are housed by nonprofits. When you think about battered women, most of them are being served by nonprofits. When you think about children receiving arts and music, most of them today, because the schools are getting rid of those programs, are served by nonprofits.
Right.
So when you think about the breadth of need, and even healthcare clinics, there are healthcare clinics that are plentiful all throughout California because, why? People can't afford healthcare. And you need nonprofits in place that can provide free to low-paying healthcare, dental care, medical care, family care.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about. That's why they keep popping up all over, because the need is great.
That's amazing. Let's go back a little bit to, the starting point, saying I want to start a nonprofit. I see a need in my community, and I'm the person to help people or to serve people in this area. It's important to remember that, sometimes you don't have to look very far for the help that you need. Once we get in contact with somebody like you, okay, Lenora has all the answers because I heard her on KBLX. But, after that, your friends and family. I've heard so many people say that, I started this with friends, with family, and I was just so surprised that so many people came to help me out with money, with time, with things like that. So I just wanted people to remember that, it's closer. It's closer than you think a lot of times.
I agree with that. The resources, sometimes we think that we have to have a dollar amount. And there is a dollar amount. You need at least $1,500 to tell people at a minimum.
Okay, that's a good number. That's a good number to remember.
When you pull in all of the different things you have to do, and if you go to my website, I actually detail out what that looks like and break out the $1,500 and why it costs that. But beyond that, the question you're asking is, how do we use natural resources and family and people around us who want to help? Those are big resources for you, and they count bigger than dollars. resources, because your family member may know how to build out, lay carpet in the facility, or you got an uncle that has a house, and nobody's in the house or can't rent it quick enough, and maybe you need a space for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You have aunts that, maybe you're trying to put together an after-school program, but you want to have someone who can help you, like, come and just watch over, spend some time with the kids,
Right.
and they have life experiences
Mm-hmm.
that they can share.
Right.
So all of those things need to be considered
Mm-hmm.
as resources when
Right.
you're thinking about starting up your program.
Right. And I know some folks start from the other angle where they're already providing a service and they just want to make this official, because sometimes it happens so many times in our neighborhoods and in our communities. There's a need, somebody steps in to fill it, and it just becomes, it has a life of its own all of a sudden. It's like, wow, I've been, sometimes people cook up food. I'm going to go bring some food to Mr. or Mrs. such and such down the street. And, this person around the corner needs the same thing. And you are already in the middle of it when you realize, oh, wow, I'm doing something that has a name to it. And then you have to go backtrack and say, you know what, I want to keep doing this and see if I can get support and see if I can, put this under the umbrella of, hey, this is a nonprofit providing a service.
That happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It happens a lot because nonprofit is a term.
Yeah, it is.
But really what it represents is a dream and a passion for people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. Sometimes people are already doing and realizing their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fulfilling that passion by providing those services today. Mm-hmm. They just haven't labeled it as a business.
Yeah.
And really putting the label and doing the paperwork is really making it a real business.
Right.
So that they can do the financial structures and all those things around it. It's easy to do. It's easy to do. And no, you don't have to be a startup, but you can take what you already have and have someone help you frame it.
Frame it. That's a good word. I like the words you're using, girl. You're on it.
And that's important
Mm-hmm.
because you need someone. A business plan is real, whether you're nonprofit or for-profit.
Right.
You still need to have a plan
Mm-hmm.
because you want to have goals.
Yeah.
You want to know that this is my first year. I've been in this business for 5 years, and I've been doing it without a business title.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's going to become a business. Where do I want it to go?
Yeah.
How far do I want to take it?
Yeah.
That should all be in writing somewhere. Because
Yeah.
it creates the focus you need.
Yeah, and I love to say that the Bay Area, we invented the word community here in the Bay Area because we're good at it. We're good at it. So, it's important to remember that we are talking about a business. When you say a nonprofit organization, a nonprofit business, it is a business. So there is some, like I said at the beginning, educating yourself. There's the research and all that other stuff. So it is a business. Now, I heard you say a second ago, did you say it was easy? Is it easy?
I don't know a business, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit, that's easy.
Uh-huh.
But what I will say,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why passion that we talked about earlier is so important,
Mm-hmm.
because when you have the passion, whether you're in business or you're calling it business, you're calling something else, it's so easy to do. Why? Because you love what you do.
You got the drive already.
So now what you're trying to do is build a foundation and a structure that will support the passion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the whole nonprofit business structure is about.
Mm-hmm.
But the caution that I give to everybody is you must treat it as a business.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're dealing with people's money.
Mm-hmm.
When you start taking money from foundations or federal government or even people who are donating their funds, their personal funds, they want to see that you're producing
I want
something
to see
from
what you're
that
doing.
dollar.
Yeah.
So that's when it becomes a business, because now you need to produce something that shows me that you use my money well.
Right.
And that's that whole thing of, as I grow, I
It's a
have to
big
do things like
responsibility.
audits,
Uh-huh.
make sure my funds are being used the way I said they were
See,
going
those
to
are
be
scary
used.
words for a lot of folks.
Well, I want to scare them a little bit,
Yeah.
because today compliance is different.
Mm.
Enron changed the scheme of
Is
a
that
lot of
right?
Because Enron was a private company, but other public companies exist.
Mm-hmm.
And when public companies are using public funds and nonprofits are using public funds because they're getting free taxes from the government, IRS is saying, you don't have to pay any taxes to me. And by the way, when people donate money to you, we're going to give them a tax break as well. So